My father gave my entire $175K college fund to my brother while I stood in the kitchen. I said one word, packed a bag, left. 5 years later, they walked into my office. What they saw made my mother's hands shake. The smell of burnt coffee still makes me sick to my stomach. It was a Tuesday morning. I was 18, standing by the kitchen island, holding an acceptance letter to my dream university. My father was sitting at the dining table with my older brother, David. Between them sat a checkbook. My grandfather had left a trust of $175,000, specifically for my education. It was legally under my father's name to manage until I turned 18. I had just turned 18 the day before. David needs this, Marcus, my father said, not even looking up as he signed his name. His crypto startup is underwater. If he doesn't pay his investors back by Friday, he's going to jail. I looked at my mother. She was standing by the sink, washing a plate that was already clean. She wouldn't make eye contact with me. That's my college fund, I said, my voice eerily calm. Grandpa left it for me. You're smart, Marcus. My father finally looked at me, his eyes cold and completely dismissive. You'll get scholarships. You'll figure it out. Your brother is drowning. David didn't even look apologetic. He just stared at the check like a starving dog. My father slid the paper across the table. $175,000. My future gone in a single signature, handed over to bail out a 24-year-old failure. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't throw plates. I just looked at the three of them, realizing in that exact moment that I didn't have a family. I had two strangers and a parasite. I said one word. Okay. I turned around, walked up to my room, and packed a single duffel bag. By the time I came downstairs, they were already celebrating David's second chance in the living room. They didn't even hear the front door close. I never went back. The next 5 years were absolute hell. I worked 3 jobs just to keep from starving. I slept in my 2004 Honda Civic through brutal, freezing winters. I showered at a cheap local gym. I skipped university entirely and got a job at a distressed debt firm, starting in the mailroom and teaching myself financial modeling late at night. I was fueled by a rage so cold it felt like ice in my veins. While David burned through my college fund in less than 8 months on luxury cars and bad investments, ultimately bankrupting my father's hardware business in the fallout, I was climbing. I outworked everyone in my building. I became a junior analyst, then a senior associate, and eventually a partner at a private equity firm that specialized in liquidating bankrupt companies. I kept tabs on my family just out of morbid curiosity. I knew my father had leveraged his house to try and save his failing business. I knew the bank had finally called in the massive loan, and I knew exactly when that debt was sold off to a private firm, because I was the one who bought it. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when my receptionist buzzed my office. Sir, the previous owners of the Miller estate are here to discuss their foreclosure extension. Send them in, I said. The heavy oak doors clicked open. My father walked in first, looking 10 years older, his shoulders slumped in defeat. My mother followed, clutching a cheap purse. David trailed behind them, looking nervous, wearing a cheap suit that didn't fit. They didn't know who the anonymous buyer was. They were here to beg a faceless corporate entity for mercy. Instead, they saw me. I was sitting behind a massive mahogany desk, wearing a bespoke suit, looking out over the city skyline. My father stopped dead in his tracks. All the color drained from his face in a second. My mother let out a strangled gasp. The cheap purse slipped from her grip, hitting the floor with a dull thud. Her hands began to shake violently. Marcus? My father whispered, his voice trembling. David just stared, his jaw practically on the floor. Take a seat, I said, my voice completely devoid of emotion. They sat down slowly, terrified, as if the leather chairs were wired with explosives. My father tried to put on a brave face, swallowing hard. Son, we didn't know it was you. This is incredible. You've done so well. Mr. Miller, I interrupted, leaning forward and steepling my fingers. I am not your son. I am the sole owner of your debt. I slid a thick folder across the desk. It was the foreclosure paperwork. You have 48 hours to vacate the property, including your primary residence, which was used as collateral, I stated flatly. My mother started sobbing instantly. Marcus, please. We're your family. Where will we go? David is smart, I said, repeating the exact words my father had used 5 years ago. He'll figure it out. You're drowning. My father's eyes filled with tears. You can't do this to us. We have nothing left. That money. We made a mistake. Please. I stood up, buttoning my suit jacket, looking down at the 3 people who had stolen my future. I'm afraid the decision is final, I said, walking toward the door to hold it open for them. My father looked at me, completely broken. Is that all you have to say to us? I looked him dead in the eyes and smiled. Okay.